finishing the story, I think it's, you know, particularly for our creators and our writers, like what a beautiful opportunity to be knowing that you get to end it and end it properly. So we're in 2036 and the observers rule the world, and it's sort of looking at what the world is like with them in control. And in 419, we realised that Peter and Olivia's daughter, Etta, is working for a Fringe division, but also working for the Resistance, and has managed to find Peter, Walter, and Astrid, but as of yet, they have not been able to find Olivia. But I'm still here, so I can assure you that they do. All of a sudden, yeah, the dynamic's extremely different, not just between Peter and Olivia and this new, you know, 26-year-old daughter that they have, but also within the Fringe team too, because Walter's no longer agoraphobic, you know, Astrid's been out, and we've got Etta, Olivia, and Peter sort of like all fighting these cases, so it's like ducks in a row, like we're all sort of standing around thinking about how we can save the world.
We got this, complete bonus season here to properly wrap up the story. Or not even the story, to properly wrap up the characters, really. Yeah, the first episode of this year takes place mere moments, hours, I guess, after the end of 419. And the family has been reunited minus Mama. And so the Scooby Gang is off to find Olivia. And also at the same time trying to... The reason other than just finding Olivia is Walter had hatched this plan that never came to fruition in 2015. Peter finally is a much more active character in what's going on, so that makes me happy because it just gets him more engaged and allows some of the things that we touched on in season 1 but never really put into the character to come to fruition, so that's nice, and I'm hoping that goes forward. Obviously, the dynamic between Peter and Olivia is very different because they had enough time to be together, get married, have a child, and have this life together. And then off camera, after the end of last season, but before episode, no, not even 419. After the end of the episode, but before 2015, when the observers invaded, they were leading seemingly a very nice life. And then when the observers invaded and Etta went missing, it split them up again, but not in a divorce sort of way, just Peter couldn't let go of the idea that he might be able to find his daughter, and Olivia went back to work. I think for Peter and Walter, it's an interesting dynamic too, because Peter, who has always been the son in that dynamic, is now the father as well, and I think maybe has a new insight, or has already had a new insight into Walter and what he was going through, and the guilt that he felt, and how difficult it was for him to contemplate losing his child.
It's like a great big book, and be able to write the final chapter and complete the storylines and story arcs and the character arcs is a gift for us, particularly as we're able to serialise in the last 13 episodes. We can just sort of crunch home, and it is really a bit of a homage to the fans because they know the history, and we're going to be repeating a lot of that history through these episodes, and people will go, oh my God, they referred to that in episode 110 or something of that nature. So for me, it's that almost unheard of chance to complete the story as one would in a novel or as an actor would in a play, to finish the character off after 4.5, 5 years. It's amazing, really. It was very interesting that last year the writers introduced in episode 419, this what seemed to be a one-off episode where Walter was suddenly burst out of the amber by these two young people, and then Astrid came into it, and finally Peter, and we found out that we were in 2036. It seemed like it was a fantastic episode, you know, Letters of Transit, but it seemed like, I think what the writers were very cleverly doing was setting the scene in case we should get, you know, just to show what would happen if we got the final season, because we couldn't play out that in the finale. But it did set the scene, and it was a very popular episode, and it looked magnificent with all of the futuristic places we found to film in, and the observers everywhere, and the 1930s dress of the normal people. It was very, very strange and wonderful to look at. So that became the premise upon which we then launched straight into season 5. We are there. The whole team is there. And but here's the thing. We're there in a world that has been taken over by observers. They've officially invaded and taken over with their superior technology. And so now we're the subjects. So what happens is that our team, our family, become really insurrectionists, become rebels. What was beautifully set up in previous seasons really was this sort of tragic love affair between Peter and Olivia, and between Peter and Bolivia, and the birth of a child on the other side, and then the fact that Peter and Olivia seem to be... What we know is that they had a child together, but we never really saw that come about in our episodes. Suddenly, though, we flash forward 21 years, and there's this woman who's 25, Etta, beautiful lady that looks like Anna Torv, or Olivia, who's also a Fringe agent, and this is their daughter. Now, the interesting thing is that when we come forward in time, because we're frozen in amber, we don't age at all. The only ones of our team that age are Broyles and Nina, who do age, but they weren't stuck in amber. And so we have Josh and Anna, young and beautiful, with a young and beautiful daughter who's only a few years younger than them. It's a very interesting dynamic to play. And of course, Walter's a grandfather, which is marvellous. So Georgina Haig has come into the company, who was introduced in 419, and she, in a sense, leads the mission forward because she knows the way this world works. We don't. And she very quickly tells us how to go about our tasks. And she works for the Resistance as well as Fringe Division. And she also turns out to be a rather hard, tough warrior. And so that makes for a lot of interesting interplay between the parents and her. There's also some beautiful flashbacks now, finally, of what it was like when they were growing up, when she was a little girl, which we never saw previously.
So, here we are in the 5th and final season of Fringe. And everybody's super excited that we got to have one last opportunity to really finish the story out smoothly. Fortunately, we got to come back for 13 more episodes in the 5th season, and it's just really great because we have more story to tell, and nobody wants to be in a show where they're dragging it out so far and, they're just like coming up with absurd plots just to keep the show going and the fans happy. But this is one of those really cool situations where the fans are being kept happy because they get the last bit of the show, and I think that it's just enough story to tell to have us go out on a really high note. And it's a pretty bizarre season. It's 21 years in the future, and everybody from the Fringe team has been stuck in amber. So Etta is able to get Astrid and Walter out. She finds her dad, Peter. She gets him out too, and she has no idea where her mom is. And nobody knows where Olivia is. And so the whole Fringe team, was like, that's kind of where the episode leaves off, is what happened to Olivia? Where is she? And so in our 5th season, we pretty much pick up from that exact same spot. The observers have been the one part of the show that just kind of defies all logic. And I think that people, see the little pieces that the writers are dropping in about the observers in the first 4 seasons, and they want more and they don't get more. You get just very, very little glimpses into who the observers are, what they mean to the world, what they mean to the Fringe team, what kind of power they have. Well, in season 5, because the world is completely overrun with observers, you get to learn a lot more about them. And it's really neat. Before, the observers seemed like these very... for the most part, objective entities that didn't want to hinder or necessarily help. Of course, we had some storylines where they did affect history according to what it was that they wanted. But in general, the observers are supposed to be just people that are watching what's happening. Well, that is completely flipped in season 5, and the observers have a lot of power. And power corrupts people. And you see it happen with the observers. The observers used to seem like they were totally cool guys. And in season 5, they are not cool guys. They're very, very scary. They do not like, human beings at all. And it seems like they kind of want to eradicate them, but they need the human beings' help too. So that's why, there are still human beings living on the planet. But I don't think the observers are very happy with that. So it's really, really nice to finally get a lot of answers about who the observers are and what it is that they want, from us. And the trickiest part is trying to find out how we're going to take the power back from the observers. And the only way that, the Fringe team is going to be able to do that is using the information and the knowledge that they've gained over the past 4 seasons.
Joining the show has been an amazing experience for me because it's such an established and well-loved show, and I think part of me was a little bit terrified coming in and with all these really well-established characters and kind of having to join the family at this really late stage was daunting, I guess. But it kind of worked for the character, I think. I mean, 419 is all about this young girl, and she has this vague idea of who her parents are and what they did and the world before, the invaders came. And she's searching for answers, and that was kind of me as an actor as well, kind of trying to work out how I fit into this world, and so it kind of worked out, I guess. Edda's the daughter of Peter and Olivia, and they get separated when she's 3 years old, or 3 and 9 months or something. They get separated, and Peter and Olivia can't find her, and Peter and Olivia end up having to amber themselves because they get into a dangerous situation and it's the only way they can survive. So they amber themselves, and meanwhile I go on living my life with foster parents, and I work out who my real parents are and decide that I want to fight the observers like they were. And so I join Fringe Division. But in our world, Fringe Division actually works for the observers, but I kind of am a double agent working for Fringe Division. I'm a war baby. I've been brought up in a very harsh world where it's very much survival of the fittest, and we've been fighting. I've been fighting an oppressive regime from a very young age, and I think my sense of morality is much more black and white than Olivia's. Like, you either do what you have to do to live, or you die. Whereas and I think too it's that thing where I have no sympathy for loyalists, because I see them as copping out basically, and providing the observers with the tools to control us. And I've seen terrible things that they've done, and they've done terrible things to people I know, so I'm very black and white about the loyalists.